Jeffrey Dahmer was a name that struck fear into the hearts of many. He was known as one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. His crimes were heinous and his actions were unforgivable. But what led him to become the monster that he was? What was the reason behind his twisted mind and his insatiable thirst for blood? The answer to these questions lies in the confession of Jeffrey Dahmer, a chilling tale of a man who was consumed by his own darkness. It all started when Jeffrey was just a young boy. He was a quiet and introverted child, often lost in his own thoughts. His parents, Lionel and Joyce Dahmer, noticed that their son had a fascination with dead animals. They thought it was just a phase, a morbid curiosity that would eventually fade away. But little did they know, it was just the beginning of something much more sinister. As Jeffrey grew older, his fascination with death and decay only intensified. He would often spend hours in the woods, collecting dead animals and dissecting them. His parents were concerned, but they never imagined that their son would one day become a serial killer. It wasn't until Jeffrey reached his teenage years that his dark desires took a more disturbing turn. He started to have thoughts of killing and mutilating humans. He would often fantasize about having complete control over someone's life, being able to do whatever he wanted to them without any consequences. But Jeffrey was a master at hiding his true self. To the outside world, he was a quiet and unassuming young man. He even managed to maintain a normal relationship with his family and friends. But deep down, he was a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode. After high school, Jeffrey went to college, where he continued to indulge in his twisted fantasies. He would often bring home men from bars and clubs, under the pretense of wanting to have a good time. But once they were alone, Jeffrey's true intentions were revealed. He would drug and sexually assault his victims, and then proceed to kill them and dismember their bodies. For years, Jeffrey managed to evade capture. He moved from state to state, leaving a trail of bodies behind him. But his luck ran out in 1991 when one of his victims managed to escape and went to the police. The authorities were finally able to connect the dots and realized that they were dealing with a serial killer. Jeffrey was arrested and charged with 17 counts of murder. He confessed to all of his crimes, giving detailed accounts of each and every one of his victims. The public was horrified by the gruesome details of his crimes, and Jeffrey became one of the most hated men in America. During his trial, Jeffrey's defense team argued that he was not guilty by reason of insanity. They claimed that he suffered from a mental disorder that made him unable to control his actions. But the prosecution argued that Jeffrey was fully aware of what he was doing and that he was a cold-blooded killer. Jeffrey was convicted on all counts by the jury and subsequently sentenced to serve 16 life terms in prison. But the horrors of Jeffrey Dahmer were far from over. In prison, Jeffrey was constantly harassed and threatened by other inmates. They saw him as a monster and wanted to make his life a living hell. But Jeffrey found solace in the company of a fellow inmate, Christopher Scarver. The two became friends and would often spend hours talking about their crimes and their twisted desires. But their friendship took a dark turn on November 28, 1994. On that fateful day, Christopher, who was also serving a life sentence for murder, lured Jeffrey and another inmate, Jesse Anderson, to a secluded area of the prison. There, he brutally beat them both with a metal bar, killing them instantly. The news of Jeffrey's death spread quickly, and many saw it as a fitting end for a man who had caused so much pain and suffering. But for some, it was a tragic end to a life that could have been different if only Jeffrey had received the help he needed. But for the families of Dahmer's victims, the pain and trauma never truly go away. They have to live with the knowledge that their loved ones were brutally murdered and desecrated by a man who showed no remorse for his actions. They will always wonder what could have been if Dahmer had been caught earlier or if he had received the help he so desperately needed. The confession of Jeffrey Dahmer shed light on the dark and twisted mind of a serial killer. It showed how a seemingly normal person could be consumed by their own demons and become a monster. But it also served as a warning that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places and that we must always be vigilant in protecting ourselves and our loved ones from those who seek to do harm.